On this episode of Outer Limits Pursuit Africa 101 series, we're going to take on one of the most hotly debated topics in all of the hunting world. What is the best rifle? Not only the best rifle, but what's the best rifle to take on safari in Africa? So Africa's a little different, so we got to think about what's the rifle we want to take to Africa. Now, if you've been to Africa, you know you can only take 2 rifles per person. 2 rifles is doable, but it's a bit of a pain. So today, what I want to look at is if we're not hunting the Tiny 10, we're not hunting dangerous game, and we only want to take 1 rifle, what's the best rifle to take? Again, kind of a hotly debated topic, but we're going to tackle it. Now, this is a 7mm Magnum. I took this on my very first safari. It actually hammered everything that we pointed at it. I could sit here today and say, hey, 7mm Magnum, the best rifle to take to Africa. But if you've seen my videos, now I shoot a .30 caliber. A very special kind of designed .30 caliber. It's actually a 300 Jarrett. I could sit here and say the 300 Jarrett because it actually hammered everything just as well or even better than my 7mm Magnum. You should shoot a .30 caliber bullet. I'm not going to do that because Africa's different. So here's what I did. I just got back from SCI. While I was there, I looked up 5 of the most respected PHs that I know. These are guys that hunt for big operations. If I mention the name, you would all be familiar with the names. 5 guys. Each one of these folks in 1 year will see and take more game than I personally or most other folks in North America will take their entire life. So they have unique perspective. And I posed a question to them because I was thinking that, hey, there's probably a sweet spot in the middle where, you know, there's 375 or the big dangerous game calibers on one side, and there's something like maybe, you know, God forbid, the 6.5 Creedmoor on the other that's a little small, but something in the sweet spot in the middle is what all the PHs are going to tell me. So I posed this question to them. I said, if you think about clients that struggle on safari, so they have a hard time, wounded game, it's just a long week. What is it about those clients and their rifles that makes it a long week? Are they too big? Are they too small? Is it something else? And the answer shocked me. Couldn't believe what I heard. And I heard it from all 5. Not one of them said, oh, they're bringing the wrong caliber. Not one. And that's what I thought. Because Africa game are different. And everything I'd always heard when I first got into hunting in Africa was Africa game are tough. And they are. There's a lot of predators. Just, you know, watch any safari TV show of a leopard or a cheetah trying to take down a zebra and the zebra gets away, right? These things are built to take the abuse of the predators that are there. But that doesn't mean they're armor plated. It doesn't mean that you need a 375 to go hunt a kudu. So again, I go back to that question that I asked all 5 PHs. What is it about the client's rifle that makes it a long week when they show up with the wrong rifle? Not a single one of them, shockingly, said the wrong bullet or the wrong caliber. Here's what they said, and it was consistent across all 5 guys. The first thing they said was, bring a good quality rifle. So what does that mean? Well, this isn't the time to get all nostalgic. You're spending $25,000 to $30,000. You're flying all the way across the ocean and you're going on safari in Africa. It's not the time to take Uncle Roy's 32 Special or 308 that's, you know, handed down through the generations that you've hunted whitetails with up in the Pennsylvania mountains. If that's the best rifle and you can shoot it really incredibly well, then by all means take it. But bring a good rifle. Well, what's a good rifle? So here's what they told me. The first is a rifle with a good clean breaking trigger. Now, I put custom triggers in all my rifles, but I would suggest you do this if you've never done it, is you can buy one on the internet, they're fairly inexpensive, but this is a trigger gauge. It'll tell you what the poundage is of your trigger. If you've never done this, most guys will probably already know what their trigger, where it breaks, what the poundage is and how crisp it is. But if you have a factory rifle, I wouldn't be surprised if it's got a 5 to 7 pound trigger. Now, some of the newer rifles these days, a lot of companies are putting in, you know, trigger techs I see a lot, or aftermarket with Timneys, you know, all very good triggers. But check your poundage on your trigger. If it's something north of 2.5 pounds, it's probably, in my opinion, too heavy to accurately shoot longer ranges, you know, 200, 250 yards. So check your trigger. If you have a factory trigger and it's 4, 5, 6, 7 pounds, I highly recommend take to a gunsmith. You can drop a trigger tech in, or a Timney trigger, you know, several $100s. It'll make a world of difference. The second thing they talked about was free floated barrels. So pretty easy to check. Most folks are shooting free floated barrels these days, but just take a dollar bill, slide it down. If it slides all the way down, you get a free floated barrel. If you don't have a free floated barrel, like I love a Remington 700. I used to shoot a lot of Remingtons. They did not have free floated barrels. So you're going to go travel, not easy on firearms unless they're, you know, high quality firearms. It could be humid, it could be dry. You're going to see a lot of different conditions over the span of a week to 10 days. If you don't have a free floated barrel, you could be pushing your zero around. So, you know, good trigger, free floated barrel. The last thing they told me consistently across the board, good optics. Now, I shoot long range. Long range isn't for everybody. You don't need a Night Force ATACR to hunt in Africa. I use it because I like to shoot long range, but you don't need the scope. You do need good quality mounts and good optics. So what do I mean by good optics? You know, I think you need a little bit more magnification than a 3x9. I used to shoot 3x9 Leopolds, and that's just not quite enough magnification when you get out at 200, 250, 300 yards. So I would suggest, you know, at least like a 4x14, something that has a little bit more magnification. You don't need turrets. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, you know, good optics, good mounts, free floated barrel, clean, crisp trigger, in my opinion, you know, 2 pounds, 2.5 pounds, something like that. So good quality rifle that you can shoot decent groups with it. So that was the first thing that they all told me, good quality rifle. The next thing is confidence in your rifle. So what does that mean? Well, the first rule of thumb is don't take a brand new rifle or a borrowed rifle on safari. So even if you do have a new rifle, you need to take it out to the range. You need to shoot a lot of on paper and steel if you have it. Get comfortable feeding the rifle, loading the rifle, different situations. You know, I prefer to hunt with a rifle before I take it to someplace like Africa or up into northern Canada, because real world conditions are very different than the range. So a rifle that you have confidence with, you've hunted before, or you've put a lot of time with real world scenarios, it will make a huge difference. The next thing they talked about was, if you don't have turrets, and turrets aren't for everybody, is understanding what your rifle's going to do out to 300 yards. 300 yards is kind of very important, because a lot of us will just shoot 100 yards off a bench at the range in perfect conditions. No wind. I like to sight in early in the morning, calm days, you know, take all the weather variables out when I'm sighting in my rifles and checking zeros. Not exactly what you want to practice. So if you don't have turrets and you want to be able to shoot out to 300 yards, there's a concept called maximum point blank range. What that is your rifle will be about 3 inches high at some 100 yards, 150 yards, and you want it to be 3 inches low at 300. Now, if you have a flatter, faster shooting caliber, you might be able to extend that out to 400 yards. But the concept is you're going to be 3 to 4 inches high at some point and 3 to 4 inches low at the maximum range. So within that range, you know that you're going to be able to put the round in a 3 to 4 inch circle. That will cover the vitals on most game. So now you don't have to adjust for drop. You just put the crosshairs on the animal as long as it's inside of that maximum range, and you squeeze off the shot. It's very simple. But you need to practice it. So it's one thing to just do it on paper and say, okay, I'm 3 inches high at 100, so now therefore my ballistics say that I'm going to be 3 inches low at 300. No, you need to either put paper up or put steel out at different ranges, 200, 250, 300, and actually practice with it and verify your ballistics that you're actually going to be able to put rounds inside that circle at the different ranges. So a lot of guys will say, hey, I'm not going to take any shot unless it's inside 150 yards. And that's completely okay. But you got to realize you're flying all the way to Africa, and you may only be able to get within 250 or 300 yards of that animal. You may run out of cover. And you got to be either completely comfortable with telling the PH, nope, I'm not going to take that shot. Let's continue to try to get closer or move on to a different animal. Or if you're going to take that shot, you need to have taken that shot before and be confident that you know where that round is going to go at that range. And it just takes practice. But again, the PHs over and over and over again talked about confidence with your rifle, shooting it in the wind. If you have a 10-mile-an-hour crosswind, is your bullet going to move very much at 300 yards? You can check ballistics tables if you have those, or just be out at the range when you've got a decent crosswind, shoot out to 300 yards and see, can you put it inside that 4-inch circle. So just real world practice. Shoot off of a pack, shoot off of sticks. We'll talk about that in a minute. But more than just shooting off a lead sled or shooting off a bag off a bench, because it's going to be different over there. The last thing that they talked about with confidence with your rifle is whatever caliber you take over there, you need to be able to handle the recoil. So if you decide, hey, I want to shoot a 300 Win Mag. I don't own a 300 Win Mag, but my buddy who hunts elk all the time, he's got a 300 Win Mag and I borrow it. You got to be comfortable with the recoil. Either it needs to have a brake. If it's not your rifle, you're gonna have to deal with whatever, if there's a brake or not, or it's got a suppressor. That's great. If it doesn't, then you need to practice with it. And again, don't shoot it off a lead sled when you're practicing. You can shoot it off a lead sled to check your zero, but you need to put in real world practice on the sticks, off a pack, something where you're comfortable with the recoil. Suppressors are incredible options. They take a lot of the blast away, but if it's not your rifle, whatever it is, you got to be comfortable. You got to practice with it. I'm a big fan of brakes. I'll talk about brakes in a different video. But this rifle is actually a 7mm Magnum. Kicks less than my 6.5 PRC that's actually suppressed. It's just an incredibly comfortable rifle to shoot, and part of that is the stock design. So again, if you have an older rifle that maybe it's been passed down a 30-06 or 300 Win Mag, and you say, hey, I want to take that over because I want to shoot a 30 caliber bullet. But the stock doesn't fit you, or just by the stock design, it kicks like a mule, it could be a long week. So practice with it, real world situations, know what that gun or rifle is going to do out to 300 yards at the very least. If you have turrets and you can shoot farther, by all means, but practice putting rounds within that vital zone at least 300 yards. It'll make a huge difference, because if you run out of cover, you don't want to be just slinging lead on a wing and a prayer. That makes for a long day and possibly a long week. And the more you can kind of get behind the rifle and shoot beyond 100 yards, pay big dividends. The last thing is that I heard from all the guys. So if you bring a rifle that you're familiar with, and it's a good quality rifle, and you're very comfortable shooting it out to 300 yards, you got to be able to shoot it off the sticks. Now, the Achilles heel that a lot of us in North America have is if you're from Texas or you're an East Coast whitetail hunter, we shoot out of elevated blinds, box blinds, or tree stands, and you can a lot of times just get rock steady because you've got a window and a bag in the window, and you can kind of get locked in with your elbow, and you just don't have that experience of shooting off of sticks. Guys that are go out west and hunt elk, it's a little closer because a lot of times you've got a pack or you're laid down on a rock, and it's a little different, so it's closer to Africa. But many times in Africa, because of the brush and the bush that's out there, you can't get down low or prone, and you need to be able to shoot off sticks. So incredibly important to be able to shoot off sticks. We'll have a whole nother video that we'll do at the range. It talks about technique off the sticks, different types of sticks. We'll go over all those scenarios, but at the very least, in my opinion, you want to be able to hit a 6-inch steel at 200 yards off the sticks. Now, if you see my other videos, I've mentioned that on my very first safari, I'm not too proud to say that I shot right over the back of an impala. The very first animal, very first day, I was using the PHS sticks. They were slightly too short for me, couldn't get steady. I squeezed off the round, shot right over his back. Ever since then, I always shoot off of my sticks just because I practice with them. I know how to get steady, but you need to be able to shoot at least 200 yards off the sticks. There's a lot of technique to it. When I personally started with it, I couldn't get the crosshairs to stabilize. It was a lot like shooting a bow. You just try to get that circle, that crosshair wobble down as small as you could and squeeze it off. Now with proper technique, I can actually get the crosshairs to stabilize at 200. It takes a lot of practice, but a lot of really good shooters struggle on safari because they just didn't spend enough time on the sticks. So it's different in Africa, and it really makes a big difference. So that was it. So shockingly, no discussion about bullet whatsoever. The only bullet selection discussion I had was don't bring target bullets. I like to shoot Hornady. I shoot a lot of Hornady. The easiest thing with Hornady is don't bring a white box. White box are typically with Hornady. Those are the match grade bullets, not designed for hunting. Bring the black box. So bring the controlled expansion bullets. That's what you want to bring to Africa. But other than that, no discussion about bullet design, all that stuff. It was more important to have a rifle that you were comfortable with. And again, not the caliber of the rifle, but good quality rifle, good quality optics that you're comfortable shooting and you're familiar with the rifle. That was it. So again, shocking to me, maybe shocking to you, because there's a ton of videos out there that say, oh, flattest caliber, best for elk, best for this, best for that. I don't think you can nail it down to just one caliber is the best for Africa. the animals are too diverse and the conditions are extremely variable, and really it comes down to more come with something that's suitable. So again, I don't think you should hunt with a 6.5 Creedmoor. It's just too small for the size of the game over there, and you probably don't need the 375. There's something there in the middle, and be comfortable with it and be able to put the bullet where the PH wants it. The first round is critical. The vast majority of plains game that I've hunted has gone down, straight down after the first shot. A well-placed shot trumps a cannon every time. So hopefully that's helpful. Be on the lookout for our other videos. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe by clicking the Outer Limits Pursuit button in the lower right hand corner of your screen, and we'll bring more informative videos like this to you. Until then, good hunting.